Actually, stay in Isaiah 14, right, and then go to verse 21. Right, could you grab me Numbers 35, verse 33? Right, so read this one for me.
Reading from verse 21. Prepared slaughter for his children, for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities.
Right, so like the elder was saying earlier as well, that the same blood that's running through you was running through the veins of your ancestors, right? And there's plenty people that people that were slave owners, right, that lived through the whole of that time and nothing happened to them, right? So do you think the judgment is not going to come for those people? Judgment is going to come because at the end of the day, the Most High is a just God. He's just. You have reasons.
The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 8 and verse 11. Because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil.
Right? So because people think that the judgment hasn't come, and because it hasn't come quickly, because they think that it tarries, or it's going to tarry, and it's not going to come, their heart is setting them to do wickedness. It's setting their mind to do wickedness. Right? So everybody stops setting their ways because judgment hasn't come. And it was the same thing when it came to Pharaoh. It was the same thing when it came to Pharaoh, because when you read the story of Israel being in Egypt, right, and you hear about the curses coming, right, so what happened is that Moses and Aaron, right, were sent to Pharaoh to tell him to let the Israelites go. And every time he said no, a plague was brought upon Egypt. But there would have been a time between each plague where he had a chance to let us go and he didn't. And every time that happened, he hardened his heart a little more because he had magicians and they could do certain things that there had to be a coincidence. Right? So every time he hardened his heart, and that was to show us that no matter what, these people aren't going to stop. Right? Because it took up until the last plague, the 10th plague, right, where all the firstborn of the Egyptians died. Right? That was the last plague. And yet still, after that, he still came after us, after letting us go. So that's showing you there's nothing that would stop them from taking us into captivity unless we go and serve our God. And it's because we were going to serve our God that the Most High saved us out of it. Because we were going to go into the wilderness and serve Him there until we went into the promised land. Right? But it's the same thing because they're hardening their hearts. Because there's many things that have come upon the nations that have been plagues of some sort. World War I was a plague. World War II was a plague. So many of the nations died. Right, during those things, because there was loads of nations involved in them. Right, and people might look at that and just think it's a coincidence, but no, the Most High allowed it to happen for a reason. He allowed it to happen for a reason. So when you look at things, you have to look at it with a spiritual eye or a spiritual mind. Otherwise, you won't see it as that. But that's the Most High bringing judgment, right? And people will say, right, that they wasn't there, right? So that shouldn't be happening to them. But here's the thing. Right, we have the blood of our ancestors running through us, like the elder said. Right, and we have to go through the curses. Right, we still have the after effects of the curses on us now. So certain things we are still having to deal with even now, even though the curses are coming off of us. Right, we're still dealing with it. So the same way we have to deal with the curses of our fathers being put on us is the same way you're going to have to deal with it too. Right, and there was those of the people that didn't have anything done to them or weren't judged during the time they were on the earth. So the only way for certain places, because we were killed across the whole globe, and the only way for the land to be cleansed is by the blood of the person that shed it. But if that person isn't around, how is that gonna be cleansed other than their offspring? Because that blood has to be spilled. Right? You still got Numbers
35 and verse 33.
Bring it out.
So ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it.
Right? So the same way, right, that our blood was shed, the blood of the person that shed it has to be shed on that land to cleanse it. Right? So the only way for this earth to be cleansed, right, is by the blood of the children of those people that did the bloodshed to be shed on that land too. Right? And that's what the Most High is doing. So when we're reading the scripture that says, wake up the mighty men, when we're reading the scripture that says that he's going to plead with them in the valley of Jehoshaphat, this is what he's talking about. Because the same way we were killed all over the earth is the same way those people that killed us, right? The same people, they're going to be killed, right? They're going to be destroyed because they tried to take us out of the earth, right? And they took us out, tried to take us out of the earth, and the Most High wasn't having it, right? The Most High wasn't having it. Right, and all these nations, right, as much as they love to pretend like they're not in on it, they are in on it, right? Go back to Revelation 18, right, and then read from verse 1, right, and then complete with Psalm 83. Revelation 18, and read from verse 1. Right, and we're going to go to Revelation 18 because a lot of these nations think that they didn't have a part to play in it, but a lot of these nations do, right? When you look at things now, right, because we got asked the other day, what do you think about what's happening in Palestine? Right? What do you think about what's happening to the Palestinians? And my question to you is, when we was in slavery, was you asking what was happening to us? What do you think about what happened to slavery? Happened to us in slavery? Right? Were you asking the question of, oh, why is that going on down there? Because there's a big protest about that. But when we was in slavery, nations said nothing. But you want us now, right, to have an opinion on something that doesn't not consider us, but it doesn't it doesn't relate to us. It has nothing to do with us. Number one, we're not on the receiving end of the missiles, and number two, we're not the ones sending them out there. So it has nothing to do with us. It has nothing to do with us. And as much as we know that it's wrong, it's not us doing it. So stop telling us about what we're not doing. Because my opinion on it is that you didn't care when it was us. So, what do you want us to do? What do you want us to do? Because you didn't do nothing when it was us. Right? So you partook in it because the same way these kingdoms flourished, right? You flourished with them, you were trading with them, doing things with them, but you had nothing to say when it came to us being in slavery. Right?
Book of 1 Maccabees chapter 2 and verse 10. What nation have not had a part in her kingdom? That's right. And gotten of her spoils?
Right? So what nation hasn't had a part in our kingdom? What nation hasn't served themselves of us? What nation hasn't benefited off of our downfall? Right? What nation? There isn't one. Right? Because all of these nations have partook in our destruction. That's why when Messiah was on the earth, he said, wherever the carcass is, there will the eagles be. That's where the eagles are. Because when we were dead, right? Because as a nation, we were dead, man. We were dead because the Most High turned his face away from us. Right? We had no understanding. We had no wisdom. So as a nation, as that nation, we were dead. Right? And the carcass was feeding off of, and the eagles were feeding off of us. Those are the nations that came and took us into slavery. Right? And they fed off of us. And that's how they built their kingdoms, off of our dead bodies. Right? That's what they did. And they built themselves up. Right? And all these nations just allowed it to happen and didn't say anything and then benefited and traded with them. Right? So read Revelation 18. Right?
Revelation chapter 18 and reading from verse 1. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen.
Right? And Babylon has fallen many times in different Babylons. Right? So you had the ancient Babylon, you had Neo Babylon, right? And now you got Now you've got Mystery Babylon, right? Which is where we are now, or you can just call them Babylon, or what the scriptures call the Great Whore, right? That's the time we're living in now. So the reason why we call them Babylon is because they're following the same customs the Babylonians are following. They keep Christmas, they keep Easter, right? It's all just different names, but those devil days, right? Those devil days, right, come from Babylon. They are Babylonian customs when you go into the history of it, right? And that's what you have to do. If you truly believe in the Creator, you'd want to know whether you're serving Him or not, right? You want to serve the Most High, but you don't want to keep His feast days. But you want to keep Christmas, Easter, Halloween, Valentine's Day, which has nothing to do with it, right? Has nothing to do with it. But Babylon has fallen many times, and Babylon's going to fall again, right? But this time, it's going to be completely destroyed, because when you read Daniel chapter 2, you read the statue, right? And that statue, the head of that statue is Babylon. It was the head of gold. And the reason why Babylon was the head of gold is because all the kingdoms that came after it, underneath it, so you had the silver, you had the brass, you had the iron, and then you had the iron and the clay, right? And all those kingdoms that came after, right, were less precious, right? But they all took from Babylon. So when you go into the history of all those kingdoms that came about, they still kept those customs, they just had a different name for them, right? They just had a different name for them. But because Babylon was the head, it's showing you that all of those kingdoms have kept Babylonian customs, right? Because that is the top, that was the head of it, right? All the way up until now. But the difference is that the only time it was going to get destroyed, right, is when that rock cut out without man's hands hits the bottom of the statue, and then it's broken to pieces, right? Which is talking about the end times, because that's the time we're in the top part of the iron and the clay. That's where we are, right? And that stone is being cut out without man's hands. That stone is being cut out without man's hands. And that stone, right, is us, is the Israelites, right? It can also represent the Messiah, but that statue is going to be destroyed, meaning that all those customs are going to be taken out of the earth, right? They're going to be taken out of the earth. That statue is doomed, it's gone, right? All those customs are gone. Right? So read on her.
Is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication.
Right? So all of the nations have drunken of the wine of Babylon, right? Every single one of them, right? Because that cup that was given into their hands was for our destruction, was for us to go through our punishment, right? But all the nations have drunk of it now, right? And they filled this cup, right? They filled this cup to the top, right? And the Most High watched them turn the world to madness, right, up until this point. And that's why when you read on, and when we read on, it said that the sins have reached to heaven, because they've done so much wickedness. The Most High isn't going to ignore it anymore, right? So read on.
So, I'm going to go there because them people,
For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, Salakia, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her,
right?
And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies,
right? So the kings have done fornication with her, meaning they've taken part in the wickedness. It says the merchants of the earth waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies, meaning that all of the things that they've done, they've made themselves rich off of it, right? And their delicacies, right, and all of the things that they've built is built off the backs of our ancestors, built off the backs of our people, right? That's what's happened, right? It's built off the backs of our people, and then all the nations haven't said anything. Instead, they've just benefited off of it. Instead, they've just benefited off of it, right? So what next scripture?
Book of Psalms, that's 83 and verse 1. Keep not thou silence, O God. Hold not thy peace and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Edom, the Ishmaelites of Moab, and the Hagarenes, Gabal, and Ammon, and Amalek, the Philistines, with the inhabitants of Tyre, Assur also is joined with them. They have hope in the children of Lot.
Right, so Psalm 83, right, tells you, it says that the nations are confederate against us. Right? The nations are confederate against us.
Long story.
Right? They're confederate and they have joined together, hand in hand. Right? Hand in hand. And they wanted to make us so that we were destroyed from off the earth. It says that our name is no more in remembrance. Right? Our name was no more in remembrance. And that's what they did up until this point. Right? Because the scriptures make it clear that they were going to do that. Right? They were going to have us there until we were completely destroyed. Right?
Book of Jeremiah chapter 17 and verse 4. And thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not.
Right? So he's made it so that we were going to serve our enemies. We were going to lose our inheritance. Right? Lose our inheritance. Right? And even those that were, a lot of people will say, oh, that we are not bad, right? Or that it was our ancestors that did it, and we're not the bad people. But the thing is that those of us that were good, right, had to go through the punishment, right? Because you had Daniel, right? He was in the Babylonian captivity, but he wasn't bad. He was a prophet, right? But he had to go through a captivity, right? Jeremiah, he was a prophet. He was good, right? But he went into captivity. Right, and the same way we went. Those that were good of us went into captivity because of the nation as a whole. It's the same way the nations are going to have to go into captivity as well. Even if you think that you're a good person, because the Most High deals with people on nationhood levels. That's how He deals with us, right? And that's what people need to understand. He don't deal with us as individuals. Yeah, He might choose an individual to go and do something, but He deals with us as a whole. Right? Deals as a whole, so that's why that's going to happen. Right? Can you find the scripture that says even you will discontinue from His heritage? I think it's in Jeremiah. I'll get one. Yeah. Even you shall discontinue from heritage. Right? It's in Jeremiah somewhere. Right, because at the end of the day, right, even those of us that were good had to go through it, right? So read that for me now.
Jeremiah chapter 17 and reading from verse 4. And thou, even thyself, shall discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee.
Right, that was the one we just read that just had for us. But even, it says, and even, let's see. Yeah. So even Jeremiah was told that he was going to discontinue from his heritage, right? He was told that, right? So from him and his descendants, right? They were going to discontinue from their heritage, right? They were going to discontinue from their heritage, and that's what the scriptures say.
Wait twice the second time,
right? And what people need to understand is that just because people are in power, because the people that are in power now think that nothing's going to happen to them because they've been allowed to be in power, but He's only done that to teach us that because they're in power, He's the one that puts them there. Right? Get me Daniel chapter 4 verse 17. Daniel chapter 4 verse 17. Right, because is it verse 16? Verse 16. verse 17, right? So read that for me. Yeah?
Daniel chapter 4 and reading from verse 17. This matter is by the decree of the watchers and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and set up over it the basis of men.
Right? So the scriptures make it clear that it says, by the decree of the watchers, right, which is the angels, right, and the demand of the holy ones, which is the Father and his only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, right? And it says that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men. He rules here, and he'll set up over it who he wants to set up over it. And it was there to teach, and that's why it says even the basis of men, because when you look at society now, when you look at how things are set up, right? We had Donald Trump in power in America, right? And then now you've got Biden, who you can't even string together a sentence, right? So you got to ask yourself, how did they get into power? How did they get into power? Yeah, even here, like when you had like Boris Johnson in charge, or Rishi Sunak, right? And these people, you got to look at them and you got to think to yourself, how did they get into power? The only way they could get into power is if the Most High put them there, because they don't have any idea on how to run a country, or any idea on how to do things in the right way. They haven't got that idea, right? And that's how you know it's the Most High that allowed them to be there. Right, and when it says the base of men as well, it means they have no spiritual understanding. They're very physical based, very carnal, because that is what the nations are. The nations are carnal. The nations are carnal, and that's because they weren't made to be like us. We were made to be spiritual, and that's why when we look at the scriptures, we can open them, and the scriptures come alive. The scriptures come alive, and then we start to understand things. Right, we start to understand things. So he's allowed them to be in charge, right? Get me Job chapter 9. Job 9 and 24. Right? Because the Most High has allowed them to be in charge. But he won't allow them to be in charge forever. That time is running out. That time is running out. Well, he's got them in charge now, yeah? He's given it to them. He's allowed them to do that. And that's what people need to understand, because a lot of people will say that the Most High created his own enemy, and somehow the devil can fight on equal footing with the Creator, but that don't make no sense. Who will create their own enemy that's as powerful as them, that can fight against them? That don't make no sense. Make it make sense.
God made the devil and made him as powerful as himself. Okay.
Yeah, it don't make no sense. How can he fight against him? That will make no sense. Right? Like we read, that's why we read the scripture. It says that the Most High created spirits for vengeance. He was created for vengeance. That's what he was created for. Right? You got the scripture? Right? Read it.
Job chapter 9 and reading from verse 24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he?
Right? He covers the faces of the judges thereof. Right? He covers the faces of his people. Right? But he's saying that he's been given into the hand of the wicked. Right? The earth has been given into the hand of the wicked. So the wicked are ruling now. Right? The wicked are ruling. And you know what? One of the biggest giveaways, right, from that Christianity is false, because it's the biggest religion in this wicked kingdom. So if it was the case that it was righteous, it wouldn't be the biggest. 100% it wouldn't be the biggest, but it is the biggest. Right? It is the biggest. Right? When Messiah was on the earth, when who in the world calls Jesus Christ on the earth, he didn't have a lot of people following him. For the entirety of the time, the majority of the time, he had these 12 following him. At one point, he had scriptures talk about him having 70 people with him. But when he started speaking certain things, a lot of them walked away. A lot of them walked away because they didn't understand what he was saying, and they didn't want to understand it. Right? So you only had 12 people with him. So if it was about number, then he would have been said, but it's not about number, because the scripture says that the next kingdom is for few. Right? Is that what you got? Right? Read that for me. Yeah?
Second Ezra chapter 8, and reading from verse 1. And he answered me, saying that the Most High have made this world for many, but the world to come for few.
Right? So he said that this world is made for many. So many people are going to be able to live here because people can do what they want to do. People can just live, do whatever they want to do. Don't got to follow no commandments. Right? But the next kingdom that's coming in is going to be for few, because there are only a few that want to follow the Creator truly and really and truly. And that's why the scripture says that there are many called, but few are chosen, because there's many called of us as well, but few of us are going to be chosen. Right? The scripture also says that the harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. The laborers are few. Because there's not a lot of people that want to come out here and defend the gospel and defend the truth. Right? But we do. We want to defend the gospel. We want to defend the truth. Because that's what we need to do. Right? We need to be ready and we need to be prepared for what is coming. Right? We have to look at things, right, with a spiritual eye and know what's coming. Right? And know what's coming. And that's why we're in the book. That's why we read the book. So that it can tell us what's coming. So that we understand what's coming. So we can prepare ourselves. Right? Because like the Messiah said, he says, will I find faith when I return? Will I find faith? Right? Get me 2 Ezra 9. 2 Ezra 9 and read from verse 1. Because we need to measure the times. We need to know what time we're living in. Right? When we read the book, right, we can work out what time we're living in. Right? A lot of people will say, because even in the world now, even in Christianity, they will tell you that they're in the end days. Right? But they can't tell you why we're in the end days. They can't tell you why. They're just taking it from, they're just saying it out of their mouth. Right? They don't know the signs. They don't know they don't know the signs. They don't know what's going on. The most they know is Matthew 24. That's what they might know. Right? That's what they might know. So read that.
2 Ezra chapter 9 and reading from verse 1. He answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs pass, which I have told thee before.
Right, so he says measure the times diligently. It means study to show yourself approved. That's what the scriptures say. It means measure where you are so that you know where you are. Because you need to know what time you're living in to know what to do in that time. Because there was a job for us in the ancient world. There was a job for us after the ancient world, and even up until now there's a different job. There's different jobs, right, that had to be done in different times. Because in the time of the Maccabees, their job was to take back the temple. That was their job in that time. Right? When Messiah came, his job was to start the preaching of the gospel. And that's what happened. And then when the apostles, when he was crucified, then when the apostles were going out, their job was to also preach the gospel and to do their ministry. So everyone had their job in their time. They had to measure their time diligently. The same way we have to measure our time diligently. The only difference is that when we measure the time now, we know we're closer to the time of the end than they were back then. Right? And we know we're very close. Because we're going to read on now and we're going to find out what it says, right? Read on.
Measure thou the time diligently in itself, when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before. Then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made.
Right? So when you see parts of the signs past, not all of them. He says when you start seeing part of the signs past, then you'll know that it's the time that is going to come and visit the earth. Just read on it as well.
Which he made, verse 3. Therefore, when thou shalt be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world.
Right, so when you start seeing earthquakes and uproars of the people, so we see loads of uproars, you got wars going on, we have protests, we have loads of different things, we have like, Black Lives Matter, we've got people just doing riots, random riots, and whatever, and stuff like that. Yeah, Capitol Hill, all these different things, uproars of the people, right? Earthquakes can include natural or so-called natural disasters, because some of the things that are happening now, right? They're even using the term biblical proportion, so they know it's not normal. They know it's not normal, right? The fact they're using those terms means they know that, right? So for these things to be happening, is telling you what the time is, right? Read on.
Then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning.
Right? So then we'll understand that he already told us all of these things. He told us these things from the beginning. Right? And all we had to do was read the book and we'd understand it. Right? Read the book and then we'd understand it. And we'd understand it, but we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to listen to the Creator. We didn't want to do what he said. So we lost understanding. We lost the way. Right? Most High sent us many prophets. And at the time, we didn't want to hear the words of the prophets. At the time, we didn't. So that's where we find ourselves in this place now. But this time, we're listening to the words of the prophets. This time, we're turning back to the Creator. This time, we're going back. And this time, we're going to keep his commandments. And we're going to stand bold, right, before our enemies, right, and before the face of them that afflicted us, right, like it says in Wisdom of Solomon 5. Right, and when they see our salvation, they're going to see how strange it is, and it's going to be like nothing they ever thought was going to come on the earth.
That's right.
Right, that's what they're going to see. Right, so to finish out, we are going to go through the final few scriptures that we go through when we speak about the gospel of the kingdom. Yes. Yeah. So get me Isaiah chapter 8 and verse 20. And you can get me 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 3.
Isaiah chapter 8 and reading from verse 20. To the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them.
Right, to the law and to the testimony, to the song of Moses and to the song of the Lamb, to Torah and to Messiah. If you're not speaking about both of those things, there's no light there. Right, there's no light there. It's like having a torch with no batteries, or batteries with no torch. Right, both go hand in hand. Right, you're not going to get light with just batteries. You're not going to get light with just a torch. Right, Messiah spoke of Torah and Torah spoke of Messiah. Right, and they should be your foundation in this war. They should be your foundation, because you're not going to get light without both of them. With Torah, you get order. With Messiah, you get redemption. So for those that only believe in Torah, I want to know where you get your redemption from. And those that only believe in Messiah, I want to know where you get your order from. Right? Because you need both of those things. Again, they should be your foundation. Right? Just get Matthew 24 verse 14. I'm just reading from here.
The book of 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 3.
Bring it out.
If our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost.
Right? So if our gospel is hid, it's hid to them that are lost. It's hid to them that are lost. So even those that don't want to know, right? There's those that don't want to know, and like my acolytes to say, those people are comfortable in captivity. Right? They're comfortable in captivity and they want to stay there, so they're not going to get the understanding because they don't want to get it. Right? But there's those that will get it at a later date, right? When it's the right time, because the Most High knows the right time and the right season for people to get it. Some people are going to have to be jolted out of their sleep. Some people are going to have to see missiles flying before they start to understand, because then it's going to wake them up. Right? The same way when Apostle Paul was on the road to Damascus, right, and he was knocked off a donkey, right, and made blind, right, and spoken to by the Messiah, right? And because this happened to him, right, then he started to understand the truth, and that's when he stopped persecuting his own people, right? And that's what happened to him. So the same way something had to happen to him to get the understanding, it's the same way some people are going to have to be woken up in a particular way. But the Most High knows the right time and the right season for that to happen.
That's right.
Right? He knows the right time for that to happen. Right? Could you get me Matthew chapter 26? And we're going to read from verse 6 down.
Matthew chapter 24 and reading from verse 14. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come.
Right, so this gospel of the kingdom is going to be preached everywhere unto all nations, for a witness to all nations. One, for the Israelites. Why? Because we were scattered across the four corners of the earth.
That's
Right? And the gospel is first and foremost for us. Right? So it's going to be preached everywhere because that's where we are. Right? And it's to tell us to get ourselves ready and prepared, because vengeance is coming on the earth and we don't want to be part of that vengeance. We want to be part of the kingdom. And the Israelites have a place in the kingdom. Every Israelite has a place in the kingdom. It's whether they take it or not. Right? Because the scripture says that the Most High wants to save all of Israel. Well, not all of Israel wants to be saved. Right? Not all of Israel wants to be saved. They like it here. Right? They like it here. But the Israelites that want to turn to him will turn to him. Right? So that's why it has to be preached out there for those that are going to listen. Right? Also, it's going out to the nations to tell them to let us go. Because the longer they have us in captivity, is the worse the judgment's going to be when it comes for them. Right? Because like the scripture says, they that lead into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. So that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen, man. That's what's going to happen, right? So they have to let us go. They need to give us reparations, and they need to repatriate us back to our land, and they need to let go of our books. They've got our books, they've got our history. Nobody wants to talk about it, right? But we are going to talk about it, and we're going to continue bringing it out until we get what we want back, right? This country is teeth, man. They've got a museum, yeah, with stolen goods. Stolen goods from everywhere. But they want to charge you to walk into the museum, and they want to charge you to look at stolen goods. You can't rate it. And like the act saying they want to loan it back to Africa. Loan their items back to them. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Right? Damn demons, man.
That's right.
Damn demons, and people want us, yeah. People want us to respect this country, and people want us to go to war for this country, right? You got the flipping general of the army chatting about, they want to conscript people. They want to start conscripting people because they want people. They want a civilian army. A civilian army when they're fighting over stuff that we have nothing to do with. We have nothing to do with. I tell you what, right? Give us our reparations like you need to. I know you're not going to, because the scriptures make it clear you're not going to. And the Most High is going to have to bring destruction. However, you're getting a lifeline here. That's what the scriptures tell us to do. Tell you to let us go. So we're telling you now.